Welcome everyone to this panel about water and common ground. And today we're going to talk with you a little bit about the sustainable results with intentional collaborative mindsets. And we have a tremendous group with us today that are producers and industry leaders, industry suppliers, and we're excited to begin sharing with you. Just real quickly, my name is Kylen Hunt, and I run two different organizations that we use specifically in the water space. We run Kylen Hunt and Company, which is a leadership and business training company, and we focus heavily on individuals who work in the water space and in the agriculture space. And then secondly, we run TWS Consulting, which is Transformational Water Solutions, and our focus on that is collaboration in the water space and collaborating with individuals like we have on this panel today. So I would like to kick off this panel real quickly by having each and every person individually introduce themselves. So Billy, let's just start with you and do a quick little 15-second intro if you wouldn't mind.
My name is Billy Tiller. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Growers Information Services Cooperative. It's a data cooperative. We're based out of Lubbock, Texas, but do projects all over the place. We have a really great irrigation project that is currently in Nebraska, based out of North Platte in the Twin Platte Natural Resource District. Thank you.
Very good, very good. How about Matt? How about you, my friend?
Yeah, hi, Kylen. My name is Matt Long, and I am a producer here in Leoti, Kansas, and my wife and I also own and operate Red Barn Enterprises, which is a supplier of inputs and consulting services for the area producers here.
Very good, thank you. Cory, how about you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm Cory Gilbert from Burlington, Colorado, and I own and operate On Target Ag Solutions. We're a precision ag-based consulting company. We focus all on managing soil variability and inputs, and precision management of water is one of our big solutions we offer.
Very good, thank you. Adam.
Hi, I'm Adam Borcya. I am from Cozad, Nebraska. I'm the president of Homestead Bank. Homestead Bank is a $280 million ag bank. We focus on agriculture. 79% of our loans are to the ag producers. We are located in far west is Cozad, Nebraska, in central to northeast and eastern Nebraska.
Very good, very good. Thank you. So thank you everyone for introducing yourselves real quickly. The purpose again of this panel is to talk about the intentional collaboration efforts that each and every one of these individuals are putting together. But we do collaboration, we focus on collaboration because of the economic and sustainable impact that it has within the Ogallala. So each one of these individuals has a different story, a different focus, and we're going to start with Billy. And Billy, I know that you have a story coming to us from the Texas part of the Ogallala. And if you could just share with us real quickly some of your story out of Texas and how that's actually driven you to be a part of what you are now in the data space.
I'm going to touch quickly on on Texas, but I want to move into Nebraska where we're really making an impact on measuring water. So, of course, I'm a Texas producer. So, irrigation in Texas is becoming more and more limited. I'm the first to criticize myself in Texas, but I also say that we didn't have a lot of room for error. We had a lot less saturated thickness of the aquifer. So there was no margin for error in messing up on how much we could irrigate. So I always challenge other areas, look at Texas and go, you may have had more room for error, but you better be proactive, because you have to be proactive to save your water for future generations, to prove sustainability. In Nebraska, we have a project at the Twin Platte, and this is really exciting to me because this is about collecting water data, and we use electric smart meters. We have a project that's got about 52% adoption across 320,000 acres, where we're collecting water to help Twin Platte Natural Resource District prove out to their growers, to the state of Nebraska, really through their growers, their irrigation practices, how much water is actually being used. I know that when we were talking the other day, Kylen, you said to me, you can't manage what you're not collecting well. And you're right, you have to have good data. And that's one of the issues there I'd bring up is One reason the Nebraska Department of Natural Resources has looked so hard at the Twin Plat and what they're going to do to return more stream flow to the rivers and pump less out of the groundwater has to do with older data. It's not that it's bad data, it's just aged. It doesn't have the efficiency of the current center pivot irrigation. So we have to collect new data. So I would say today, growers, you need to be proactive. You need to get out in front of this. You have to get in the game. You can't sit back and hope others do this. So, you can't manage what you can't measure. So we have to measure all those things. We got a lot of panel here, so I want to stop there so we can move forward. Do you have anything else you'd like me to jump in on that, or do you want to move on, Kylen?
I think you did a great job with opening that up. We're going to come back though, Billy, to you and talk a little bit more about how you're using that information and collaborating with others to help the farmers either further. So we'll come back to that for sure. Matt Long, I'd love to move to you now because you're also a producer and you're working a similar situation to what Billy was down there, but in a totally different part of the world. And your water's not completely gone, but one of the things you mentioned the other day is you're kind of following on those heels. And if we're not careful, that water could go away. You want to feed into that a little bit, Matt, from your perspective and how you're helping to positively impact that.
Yeah, so here in Wichita County, the Ogallala Aquifer has been depleted by about 65 to 70% already. And so myself and a group of about 10 other individuals, I think 5 years ago, started talking and collaborating about the water conservation area program that the Kansas Department of Ag and the legislature had put into effect here, where people could voluntarily choose to conserve water. And so it took us a year or two to kind of get that plan all hashed out and determine what we wanted to do there and how we wanted to do it. Effectively, we decided to take a 29% reduction in our historical use. I think about 20% of the active irrigation wells in the county are enrolled in that program now. And we're conserving about 2,700 acre feet per year just through that group there. More recently, the Groundwater Management District has initiated the proceedings for LEMA, which is Local Enhanced Management Area. And that went into effect on January the 1st for Wichita County here. And a slightly smaller reduction in historical use for a shorter period of time, 5 years. But that effort there should expand on the savings. I don't know the exact numbers of savings that'll come out of that LEMA. One of the things that I think I found when we were going through that WCA process was everyone who signed up for the WCA was someone who had been personally connected with by someone who was involved in developing that plan. And then the other thing was that when people decided to take that step, it was very intentional. And I was telling Kylen and the other guys on the panel here the other day that a friend of mine, his wife told me that she didn't recognize him anymore because one night when it was raining, he was getting his boots on and he was leaving the house. She asked him where he's going. He said, I have to go shut the irrigation wells off, because he had discovered through the process the value of the water that was going to be wasted between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. the next day when he would have normally shut those wells off after it rained. And so, yeah, I think that's all I've got for now, unless you've got things you want me to expand on there, Kylen.
That's really good. Kudos to your friend. Tell him thank you from everybody, because that's a mindset. That's a mindset right there. And that's awesome. That's awesome. Cory, let's prepare you for a little feedback here. I know, Cory, you're in a little bit different position than Billy and Matt are. You're still part of the family farm, but your business primarily takes you to other farms. You're working a lot with other producers in the precision space. You want to speak into that a little bit?
Yeah, just to touch on what Matt said. We work with numerous growers across in about a 50 to 60 mile radius here from Burlington. All different soil types, all different well capacities. We have guys with a lot of saturated thickness. We have guys with not very much and declining well capacity. So we see a little bit of everything. And that's been the biggest thing I've seen over the last 5 to 6 years, is that most of our growers have made a voluntary effort, and it's an intentional action in making that decision that they want to change how they use irrigation water, and they want to manage that to try to be more sustainable. And that takes an investment on their part in terms of the hardware and the sensors and the software solutions and the services like we provide that they invest in. And so, a lot of times that'll look like a line item to a banker, just an expense, but it's really a long-term investment. And so I think if the industry can see that and collaborate around this movement to conserve this resource, that could do tremendous things. We use in-field soil moisture sensors and software and other soils data to make better decisions on what the crop is using, how deep a rainfall event is infiltrating our soils, if our profile is full or if it has room. And so we can make those smarter decisions. And I think we talked, I can provide a lot of success stories, but just one in general is and we've seen this numerous times over the years, but if August of 2019, we had a rain event and some cooler weather, and August is a time in our country where you wouldn't dream of turning off irrigation. It's reproduction on our irrigated corn and high water demand, but we had a tremendous number of our systems that told us we could be shut off, and just running some numbers on that. If we have about 50% of our business, the acres that we manage turned off, using the average well capacity, we're saving about 112 acre feet per day. And so with an inch of rain, we can save about 450 acre feet over a 4-day time span if we make that decision to shut off. And so that's an intentional thing. We can't just have those sensors out there. The grower has to listen to that data and that recommendation. There's no shortage of tech out there. There's plenty of software and hardware solutions to do this, but getting that buy-in and making that decision is the first step.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Cory. One of the things that you mentioned, and I'm sure you mentioned this intentionally, is that investment side. And I know this is a space that you've spent a lot of time, you've invested a lot of time helping producers understand the value of these sensors and the dollars. I mean, really using these sensors to generate revenue on the farm. And I know you're also doing that with some other precision ag. And before we jump on to him, I know you're doing some things with precision technology, variable rate seeding, fertilizer, and things like that. And one of the comments you made the other day is you're using that, even those decisions, you're driving those decisions based on water. Can you share with us just a little bit on that before we jump into Adam?
Yeah, absolutely. We're in an area with highly variable soils. We have sandy soils, we have heavy clay soils, we have silt loam, and we kind of have the full gamut here in our service area. And even within fields, we'll run into those huge amounts of variability. And so collecting spatial soil information within those fields and across a grower's farm, not every field is the same. They all need treated different, and they also need treated differently within, whether that's nutrients or water or plant populations. But whether we're doing variable rate seeding or fertility, it all comes back to productivity, and a lot of that comes back to water and that soil's water holding capacity. Whether it's a lot of slope or it's a texture or organic matter issue, there's a tremendous amount of data that we've collected and we use to make those decisions, whether it's a seeding population or variable rate irrigation. So there's numerous solutions across the market. We try to kind of custom fit every one of those solutions to what an operation has available to them. But when you tie it all together, it's a systems approach, and it always seems to come back to water.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate that, because you're exactly right. And it's that investment, it's that mindset around water first. And I know as you're doing those things and thinking about it from a precision perspective, it is a big investment. the farmers are making that investment and you're helping them turn that investment around to be very positive for them. And that moves us to Adam Borcyra. And Adam, I know you're working in the finance space where you're loaning money, you're helping people invest and get a positive return. And we just heard how Cory is starting to do that with his efforts on the farm. So share with us a little bit about yourself and how you're helping producers be profitable in this space also.
Well, as an ag banker, we look at multiple operations. We look at cash flows. We try and help our producers generate more profits. A couple things in the last couple items that were discussed was investments and value. And I agree 100%. And as a bank, we agree 100%. Going, if you can save money anywhere, of course, that's going to bring more value and it's a better return on your investment. Unfortunately, a couple things that we fight against are, one, high-priced commodities. An example, in high-priced commodities, people aren't as worried about saving the money on the other end. I could give examples of, when it does rain and we have guys out here that run 40, 50 pivots, they really don't want to shut off 40, 50 pivots to restart them in a week later, so they'll just let them run. That's not the way to do things, but we do hear about those things. As a bank, we are always interested in listening to people on how they can save money. And that's one thing that's hard to put a finger on the irrigation side. And the water side is, someone could go into a bank and get their interest rate lowered. They know exactly how much money they're saving. They can contract their commodity. They know exactly how much they made, from one day to the next. Water is tough. But it is an overall thing, and we can tell stories after stories. We have a NRD district just south of us that they were limited water. Our producers down there were producing 180 to 200 bushel an acre corn consistently. They got had to go down to 11 inches a year on irrigation. Guess what they did? They changed their practices and are still producing 200 bushel an acre corn with 11 inches of water. So it can be done. And all those producers have learned the right way to do things. Unfortunately, we are in the Platte Valley here where water is abundant. And so with it being abundant, it's one of those things, you can't put a value on it. It is tough, but we do have a lot of great producers in this area that they do watch that and watch their P's and Q's and are able to show on cash flows on, hey, if we invest in this, we can save this amount of water and produce the same. And those are the things that we look for. We agree that there are probably some institutions that don't believe in technology. We are definitely one that we really look at that, and we can compare then operations going, this operation is using technology, and look at the savings it's having here compared to other operations that aren't. So it's very interesting times we're in with the technology out there. Like I said, I've been doing this for 28 years, and where we've been from 28 years ago is tremendous amount. And one thing that the great producers throughout the country have realized is not always more is better. And so they're learning that they can produce these crops, and we are the best producers in the world, produce these crops with less inputs and less water.
Very good, very good. Yeah, the more production with less water, or the same production with less water, is a win. So thank you for that, Adam. Appreciate that. I want to step back to Cory. Let's start moving this a little bit in a little bit different direction. We'll pull this through in round two. But Cory, if you could feed into it real quickly here again, you're working directly with those growers. You talked a little bit about the precision approach. I don't want people to miss that. What are some things that growers should be doing today or could be doing today in terms of collaboration with other people? Maybe it's NRCS, government, non-government entity. What are some things that growers could do today to be collaborating with others to take their programs even further from your perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kylen. I mean, we see some programs through NRCS or some other funding programs that have helped some of our growers and growers in the region. It helps ease the blow on that upfront investment on the hardware that that's a, you know, fairly steep cost up front, and it has a long-term payback to it. And depending on how much you implement that and trust that information, there could be a quicker payback. That's, you know, going back to what Adam said, that's a challenging thing to measure because everyone's going to implement that differently, but it sure provides opportunities. You know, as far as increasing the effectiveness, I think it comes down to that grassroots that you're talking about, kind of an awareness within growers. I mean, I think there's a mindset that's out there, maybe not with everyone, but some people might have the mindset that they can't make a tremendous difference because they're maybe on the smaller end of things. They might only have a couple wells. You know, what difference can I make? Kind of a question you ask yourself. And I think if you step back and look at it from like my perspective at a higher level across multiple farms, every single system that we add into that and start incrementally adding to that acre foot savings when those systems can be shut off, that turns into a very big number. It scales out very quickly, even if you only add 1 or 2 systems to that are shutting off. And so I think it's an awareness among growers, and I don't know if that's through you know, local data cooperatives like Billy's talking about, or a LEMA program, but communication and collaboration among growers in smaller regions and water districts, I think, could be huge for raising that awareness and getting more people bought into this idea, and you know, making that small incremental addition to conservation, and all of a sudden you have a huge amount of conservation.
Yeah, a little bit over the course of time goes a long ways, and that's huge. And the more growers that are participating, the better. So Matt, how about you, my friend? You're in a similar situation as Cory, working directly with producers, but you're also working with some individuals in your footprint that are pretty active in water conservation and collaboration efforts. You want to share a little bit from your perspective on how this is positively impacting our communities and our, quite honestly, quality of life?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I found, kind of like what I said earlier, it's like a one person at a time conversion process here, I guess, if you want to call it that. And it really takes that personal interaction with each one of them. The guy I was talking about there who went to shut his pivot off because it was raining at night, or they have several pivots on their farm, you know, I bet it took 2 years to get him converted over. And his wife was on the planning group for the water conservation area. So that was like a daily thing at their house, I'm sure, to some extent. I think as a quality of life, or kind of a bigger picture from the community aspect, you know, if you look at the communities in the western part of Kansas, at least, or Leoti is on Highway 96 here, you can see which communities are vibrant, and those that are vibrant all have a fairly stable water supply still. There are several communities that have basically dried up because there's no industry outside of agriculture, and the irrigation really drives the industry beyond just cropping. You know, Wichita County has really large feed yard capacity. We also have a feed mill that is grinding feed for hogs all through western Kansas. And having those things in our community is because we have the water to support the feed yard or to support the hogs. If the water goes away and the hogs go away, so does some of the profitability of our farmer operations. You know, so does the need for some of the labor on the farm and stuff like that. And so I think, you know, to me, conserving water isn't just about there being water for the future. Conserving water is there being a community for the future. You know, we have to have enough water to have enough people to have a community.
Absolutely. And that's what this is all about in my mind. It's about the people. It's about the quality of the life there. We don't want to see towns dry up, and literally with people. We don't want to see people leave. So thank you, Cory. Thank you, Matt, for that. And that leads us now to Billy. And we're going to start to land this ship with Billy and Adam. But I know the data that's being collected with Cory and the stuff that Matt's doing and the people he's working with in the seed space and all these other components that he just mentioned. Billy, everybody's collecting some data today, but not everybody's using data and not everybody's collaborating with data. And I know that's a space that's very important to you and you're very passionate about. Can you speak into that a little bit about how we can improve collaboration, how we can improve this data side?
Yeah, I would just start out by saying that don't be afraid to collaborate. For some reason, we've grown where we think, oh, gee, collaboration. How will my data get used against me? That's always the fear. And the truth is, we have to get proactive because the worst thing that could happen, I always fear bad data regulating me, and then down the road we find out, oh, I could have been irrigating for the last 5 years. I've been allocated by 4 extra inches because we didn't collect good data. So first of all, there's that. And then secondly, especially in the Twin Plat project, I'm committed to build out benchmarking for these growers. Now, I think the way to do that is to keep that behind the scenes where they can see it. How are they benchmark against all these other producers? But we have to handicap that with some great weather. I mean, you can't really tell a guy he did a great job irrigating, he got twice as much rain, and it happens. So we have to really focus in on some of those things. So I'd really go to that. You can collect all the data you want. You can collect great data, but if you don't have anything to compare it to, you really don't have anything. I mean, if you don't have a benchmark, I mean, if I run a 100-yard dash and I'm the only one running, you can tell by looking at me, I'm probably really fast. No, I wouldn't be fast, but if I'm the only time in the set, I was first place. But you got to compare me to something else. So I think that has to happen. And I also want to reiterate the value of collecting and collaborating today. I think we're setting on the precipice as growers of a chance to use our data around sustainability to actually make more money. And I think the time is to think like that, be proactive, know how much water you're applying. It's not really, how would you define sustainability? I've heard this a million times, Kylen. I'm sure you've heard this, continuous improvement. I do like that because that can take a guy that's really not done well, let him start here where he's at and start to improve. So if growers are listening to this, producers, I'm going to reach out to them and just say, think about that. Think about water conservation for sustainability. There could be dollars involved. I'm hoping that's where we're going with this because we have to get paid for some of this collection. So thank you, Kylen.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly right. Data drives dollars when it has opportunity to. And that's a big piece of it. We got to give it that opportunity. So Adam, let's move to you. You've heard a lot of people talk about a lot of different things here that is, moving business towards a more profitable perspective, keeping communities together and bringing some of those components to life for our communities. So Adam, how do you want to wrap this up and talk about finances, talk about making money, investing money to get the right return and keeping our communities alive? How do you want to end this with us today?
Well, the first thing I wanted to say is Matt's 100% correct. Especially in small communities, those small communities are driven by agriculture. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm part of our development committee here in our town, and we can tell, and all the businesses in town, all my town customers will tell you right off, if we're in good agriculture times, their profits are up. If things are tight, they're tight too. So that is a 100% true statement. The other thing we need to realize with the water conservation, and we really haven't touched on, is the investment in the ground. That's something bankers, we look at. We look at that as collateral. So we have to, an example I used in the NRD district that limited the amount. We really had to take a hard look and make sure that those producers were, in a 3-year period, they only had 33 inches of water they could use. Well, we didn't want them to use all 33 inches the first year, and then the next 2 years, it's dry land. And so, there is a lot of things you have to look on there with the value. Also, on the communities is you can definitely see a correlation of good farm ground with good water. There's a lot more money in those communities than there is, seems to be in the dry land communities. So, that there is a definite correlation there. The other thing as bankers we concentrate on, and it's going to be a closer look now, is we have regulations that could potentially be coming into the banking industry that's going to force financial institutions to look more into the water issue, and that's directly through climate change. And I'm going to kind of cheat and have a little cheater note here, but I received from the Federal Reserve a letter, supervisory activities for the Federal Reserve, and they basically said that in the future, banks are likely to review climate risk in their bank. They may need climate scenario analysis. Banks may need to complete risk assessments on their assets. They'll need to monitor those risks, and will need to stress test climate change. And in the banking industry, when that many regulations come out, that's huge. And so, we definitely, at that point in time, we're going to be looking at the producers that are managing their farms properly, managing the waters properly. Because if we have someone that's not doing that, that is going to become a risk, and someone we're going to have to constantly assess and watch over. And that's the type of producers we're not going to want. We're going to want the ones that are working with and going with the flow instead of against the flow. So, there is a lot of correlation. I know I talked about a lot of things real quick there, but agree, values 100% with the groundwater communities. It definitely correlation there, and with the banks, it's something like water. You don't think that could have a bank's attention, but it really does. And so that's something that we do pay attention to, and it looks like we're going to be paying a lot more attention to going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, I greatly appreciate that, because it's something that you mentioned right at the end. I'd love to have you collaborate on just a little bit more, because you mentioned that your bank, I know your bank does, because I know you, I've worked with you. You focus on that water component a lot in that community. But what could the community do? What could the banks be doing right now to get the community involved a little more in collaborating with producers, and doing a little more to help the producer with that understanding that it is important financially to the community? What could a bank be doing right now with a message of that nature?
And it's hard for all the banks. I mean, regulation, of course, is going to be one of the components to try and get all the banks on the same page. I throw it a lot on talking to our producers, for our bank, and which producers should be talking to their loan officers and their banks, of going, what's your guys' philosophies? What are you looking at? Right now, with me being the president, I don't talk to a lot of producers one-on-one. I have the fortunate part of I get to see them inside the bank and talk to them there, or go outside on the farm and talk to them, but I'm not actually talking to them one-on-one with numbers. But when I did, the first thing I always told them, especially for new customers, is I always told them it's a partnership. The producer and a bank, we're partners together. My job is to lend you money. My job is to get the money back. Okay. My job is the easy part. Now, I have to make sure that the producer on the other end is able to take that money, produce a crop, make money, and pay the bank back. So to me, it is the producers need to go and talk to their lenders and find out, what is your philosophies on this? What do you think about this? And your bank should be on the side of technology. There should be the ones that are also talking about the water issues. If they're not, that should be a concern for you, of going, is that the partner I want? Because there is a lot of banks out there that just loan you money. I mean, there are some larger banks now that their loan officers, if you don't borrow a certain dollar amount of money, they will tell you to go to www.bank.com and input your application, and the computer will let you know if you're approved or not. There's no help there. That is not a partnership. So we still believe in one-on-one partnerships, and that's something that every producer should look at. To me, a bank is no different than in talking to your any of your crop input specialists, or anybody else that you work with for handling your crop. So especially your agronomist. To me, I always, and I have really good relationships with our agronomist around the town I live in, just because I always want to be on the same page as them. And so, there were things I've been talking to them. I still do. I still call on them, just to, hey, how are things going throughout the year? And the reason why is I want to make sure everyone that I work with is on the same page.
Perfect. Well, Adam, Billy, Matt, Cory, thank you so much for being a part of this panel. And as we wrap this up today, I just want to remind everybody of what Adam was talking about there at the end of partnership. That's where a lot of this starts. It's making a conscious effort to want to partner with somebody, that you can collaborate with, that you can brainstorm with and come up with solutions. And that's where a lot of this is at. As I look back at the history of water in America, we got a lot of challenges that have been created in the last 30, 40 years, or for sure the awareness of these challenges has been brought to our attention because of technology and things like that. We don't have 30 or 40 years to turn a lot of this around. And as Matt was saying, economically, we want to keep people here. We don't want to dry up a community and dry up the community with people. We want to be able to have a quality of life for as many people as possible in these small communities. And that's going to take an intentional action of collaboration. So that's my challenge to everybody here that's listening to this. I know there's some tremendous people that I've met in a lot of different industries, whether it be the oil and gas industry or the pivot industry. I've worked with several of you guys directly. I've had the privilege of working with large food companies and some of the larger feedlots. We all are in this together. And together, we will come up with solutions better than any one of us will individually. So my challenge to everybody is to really focus on how we can collaborate, how we can create partnerships that can take our results to a whole new level. Billy talked about some of the adoption levels that he's seeing at 53%. We can do that in a lot more ways, in a lot more places, if we learn how to collaborate, collect good data, share good data in the right way for the right reasons, and then ultimately get the right results. So my friends, thank you so much for being a part of this with us today. Thank you again to this panel for being a part of this. And thank you to everyone who helped put together this summit. And we look forward to meeting you again, hopefully face to face here one of these days. But until we do, make it awesome. God bless.